Closed captioning is available by clicking on the closed caption icon on your Zoom screen and then selecting Show Subtitle. If you do not see the closed caption icon, it may be under More.
Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world right now. My name is Rosalind Payne, and I'm coming to you from San Francisco. Professionally, I'm the chair of UpMetrics, a data, analytics, and services company for the social and investment sectors. But today, most importantly, I'm happy to say that I'm a proud supporter of the Technion. I have a passion for youth education, a passion for Israel, and those two passions combine in a perfect way for my support of the Technion. Before we begin today's program, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge what is happening in Israel right now. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say we are praying for calm and peace in the region, and that we stand with our Technion family in Israel. I know that the Technion way is to always move forward and to focus on the positive. And in that light, we are pleased to have the program today. I'm especially delighted to be with you today because in my professional life, I work with clients who are navigating challenging circumstances. And doesn't that sum up the last 15 months that we've all had? We've seen our lives change in myriad ways since the start of this pandemic. And while we are slowly coming out of this unprecedented period, it's clear that we most certainly will be dealing with new realities in our lives. And one of those realities is sure to be the way we communicate with each other near and far. And of course, that brings us to today's program with two of Technion's most dynamic graduates, Oded of Zoom and Itzik Parnafes of Battery Ventures. Oded received his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Technion and serves as the chief product officer at Zoom, responsible for leading the company's product management. Before joining Zoom, Oded had leadership positions in video conferencing and unified communications product management at Blue Jeans Network, Cisco WebEx, and RadVision. Itzik, who has a bachelor's degree in both computer science and math from the Technion, is a general partner at the tech-focused investment firm Battery Ventures and works on early-stage investments in information technology. He co-founded Kagor Networks, a leader in voice-over IP technologies, and headed R&D of Class Data Systems, which was subsequently acquired by Cisco Systems there in Israel. Oded and Itzik are longtime friends and are uniquely positioned to speak to us today about what it's like to be a disruptor, what exactly that means, and how it will transform the way we live in this digital age. Before we move on to this fascinating program, just a reminder, we will have time for questions at the end of the program. Please use the Q&A function on the webinar screen to submit your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. Today's program is also being recorded, and you'll get a link in a few days. Again, it's just a reminder that closed captioning is available for this webinar, but by clicking on the closed caption icon on your Zoom screen and by selecting Show Subtitle. And now it's my deep pleasure to turn the program over to Oded and Itzik. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosie.
It's really exciting to be here today with the alumni of the Technion and with Oded, as you said, we're longtime friends. And Oded, maybe you should start by kind of telling everyone a little bit about kind of your history and how it's intertwined with the development of technology that allows everyone to conduct media, voice and video over the public internet.
Sure, I'll do that. But yeah, first, before that, hope everyone's okay in the family and really looking forward to calmer times. Well, Itzik, you've been a friend and an advisor for many years, and you kind of followed my career through that. And we really started right up, out of Technion with dealing with hardware in an Israeli company called Radvision that built servers that provided bridging for the traditional video conferencing with kind of high-end room systems. That was the way video conferencing was actually consumed in the business world at the time. And really that product was being built by an Israeli company, Radvision, part of the Rad group at the time that was acquired by Avaya. But that product was OEM by Cisco, and I kind of find my way into the Bay Area where, we kind of bonded working in the Silicon Valley. And I've done that for a few years, working at Radvision and kind of helping with that partnership with Cisco. Then kind of decided to join a local company, WebEx at the time. I was heading kind of video at WebEx before video was a thing. And really build a team at WebEx to create a video experience inside the traditional web conferencing. And really what I noticed at the time, Itzik, and I think you can relate to that, the two separate applications, web conferencing was one and video conferencing was another, and they were not connected to each other. And I think that's one of the things that over my career, I tried to do, bring those two together until we got into these days where you actually don't need to even talk about it.
Yeah, if I can just kind of comment, I think it was something like 20 years ago, and I think like Oded and I were having a beer somewhere, and he told me like, how can it be that I can, like, in a click of a button, call basically anyone on earth, right? And have a video call with that person. And why can I not do the same for a video session, right? He said, I remember to this day, I said, my kid wants to speak and see his grandmother in Israel, and he cannot do that, right? And I think, Oded, that was remarkable for me, like that vision that you carried like with you in decades, now essentially came true, right? Today with Zoom, that's exactly what we can do. Like there's no setup, there's nothing, you can invite someone, click a button, you see excellent video, you hear them, it's great. So congrats on doing something so remarkable that changed the world, according to your vision here. Oded, like we're both Technion graduates, right? And I studied math and CS. By the way, my my mentor was Oded Goldberg, that now became famous for very other reasons. And you graduated from electrical engineering, and it was kind of interesting for me if you can reflect back and say, like, what kind of tools did the Technion give you that allowed you, that helped you throughout your career?
Yeah, I think that's something that will stay with me for forever. Outside of the core capabilities of understanding the technology around signals, around even the basic electrical engineering aspects, really sitting in the labs. And I'm sure you're familiar with that, nights and going in the morning, opening the door of the lab and staying until the next morning straight, and really figuring out how to get things done and solve problems by yourself is the big thing. And that ability, that accessibility to the labs, and that direction to really solve it as an independent person or maybe with a partner was something that stayed with me for all of my career. And the tools that were kind of given by the people who really provided the guidance for those projects of really driving you to be independent, driving you to resolution, and then of course presenting the project to a large audience and having the tools to present. Those are the things that stays more than just the core technology that you study and you learn as an electrical engineering student.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, and I was thinking like what I took away from the Technion was the tendency to basically question everything and anything, right? You don't take anything for granted. You can harass anyone, your professor, you can harass your student, your fellow students, just asking like, why is this so, can it be different? Convince me and show me scientifically, why something is so. And that's a practice that I carried with me, today, even in my work as a venture capitalist, that essentially kind of deals with disruption, deals with, okay, so the world looks like this, it can be different, right? And let's prove that it can be different, and let's not take anything for granted, which is to me like a great takeaway from this great school. Oded, like I remember like 2018, I think, right? 2019, we were kind of celebrating, you and I, right, the success that you enjoyed in Zoom, right? Zoom became like a big company. Us Battery, we were invested in a competitor that, that was kind of went away. Zoom became like the dominant force. It was a very successful company. You went public, so that was a cause for celebration. And we thought, wow, that was great. And then Corona happened, right? Which is like, you remember that book that we used to read, back then called Inside the Tornado, kind of talking about what happens when a startup explodes, and that's what you underwent after Zoom was already a successful company. Tell us a little bit like how it felt, during these days.
Yeah, it's kind of an amazing experience, and I think we spoke about it. Our IPO was successful. It was before everything happened, and we were considered the #1 IPO of 2019. Our S1 was read by all the startups, and I think it's being studied in business schools these days. And it was an amazing experience, just the public offering and going through the IPO. And one thing that was extraordinary at the time, the whole roadshow of Zoom was done over Zoom, and the bankers were amazed, and some of them were upset. How come the CEO is not coming and his team is not coming to present? That was unusual at the time, and I think that kind of represents the biggest change that happened to us as a company, but to the world, where that transition and that disruption, the fact that people are now accepting it as the norm, and that's what really has driven the change of our company post the pandemic. That's the most amazing aspect. And you mentioned how we spoke about it 20 years ago. And I think the biggest thing was the mental acceptance of the technology. And, because that's what drove the change and our growth as a company. We went from 10 million participants a day to 300 million in a matter of a few months. And that really shows how things have evolved, and how that it's not just about the technology that was there to support it. It's not just about the application that's available over the cloud. It's about the mental acceptance of people that had no choice. They wanted to be together, and because of the pandemic, they had to find ways to connect, and they found it, and they found us.
Yeah, no, these are still remarkable times. Oded, I'm not sure that I shared with you, but here's a use case that I'm pretty sure that you did not have in the spec that you wrote for Zoom. A few weeks after the first lockdown that we had here in Israel, our next door neighbors, like their daughter and her fiance, like they needed to get married, right? You couldn't get married in Israel. Many people chose to kind of postpone the wedding. These guys decided to go with it under the severe lockdown that they had, so they could only host, I think, 10 guests or something in their backyard. and they set up a filming crew in our backyard that was overlooking that. And that wedding was broadcast through Zoom to their entire like extended family in all parts of the world. You know, getting married over Zoom, I don't think you had that as a requirement in your product spec.
No, and it's great to kind of listen to those stories of celebrations, but the other aspect of it was also part of the pandemic, and part of Zoom was funerals. Actually, it's sad to talk about it, but I actually got a message from people who went through a Shiva on Zoom and said actually it felt better for them because more people could join their Shiva. We know it's a tragic situation, but when you talk about someone who passed away and you want to share your thoughts and you want to go through that period of time where you mourn and you have such a big community around you, it's actually helping you go through that. And we were there to help those people. So that's kind of the other spectrum of a celebration and a wedding. And so that also happened, and it was good to see.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know hear about that before. So great. Thanks for sharing. Oded, I wanted to ask you, I understand that there is a special connection between Zoom, the company, and the Technion. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yes, that was actually happened before the pandemic, even before the IPO. Our CEO Eric really wanted to contribute to technology in general and to the tech industry in Israel, and we really wanted to find a way. And the decision was, let's help the Technion by providing the service free of charge to anyone that actually has a Technion email address, can have an account and can enjoy the service. And that happened actually before everything turned out. And one of the reasons I'm assuming that Technion was ready for continuing to teach and to operate when the pandemic happened. But really feeling blessed that we could do that. Actually, the president of the Technion at the time, President Perez, came over to Zoom, met with our CEO Eric, and they exchanged ideas about technology, about how to really promote the ability to go and learn online, which was at the time wasn't the norm, and now it is. So it's funny to see that, but really fortunate that we could help the Technion early on and get them ready for this period of time.
Yeah, no, you guys have been great, and you have the Technion a lot. You have also other institutions in Israel here. Like you remember, like we harassed you for a bug or a misconfiguration, like in the middle of all of this, and you had the patience to actually kind of walk these people through that. You guys have been amazing. I know you also worked with the Ministry of Education here to allow kind of children to study remotely, and really kind of really thank you for all you did. Maybe worth mentioning that Eric is not an alumni of the Technion, is not Israeli, is not Jewish, but I think this kind of is a testament to recognition of the Israeli high tech and the contribution that Israel and the Technion had to the larger ecosystem of technology in the world, right? And so thanks guys for that.
Yeah, I think overall we actually provided our service even now to many schools across the world. We have 125,000 schools using us without, free of charge today, and we'll keep supporting the education community across the world, and that we see that as a mission.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So Oded, like Zoom now is more than just kind of a communication service, right? Zoom is a platform that other people are building on top and providing services on top, right? could you share with us a little bit kind of what's your vision for the world? Like how Zoom thinks about kind of where do you want to go from here?
Yes, definitely. That's something we are kind of working on right now. The idea is that a communication platform is something that can be used for the core meeting experience or a webinar like we are right now in, but it actually has much more than that. And the idea is to really, one aspect of it is for events, allow people to kind of run events using our platforms with a full customization, with a full end-to-end experience. That's something we actually announced yesterday, the Zoom events. And the idea is that you have a full experience, whether you're a yoga teacher that can run their classes with full support for the payments, for a directory of events, up to an enterprise company that wants to run their user conference over Zoom and will provide the full before, during, and after the event itself, the full kind of community aspect of it, directory, agenda, and will provide the infrastructure for both the session itself, what we're known for, the actual communication aspect of it, but even the communication of the community that is attending a conference is a type of communication that we will support. So that's one aspect of where we play as a platform. The second is really how do we support the full end-to-end experience before, during, and after the actual session itself. And for that, we have announced Zoom apps that will be released soon, hopefully in the next few weeks. And the idea really is to provide the ability for partners, for startups, for developers to build integrations into the actual communication experience itself and drive that workflow, the end-to-end workflow of maybe a sales team or a project team or even a class, to have that experience before, during, and after the meeting, and have that continuation through an app that runs inside the meeting and continues that experience across the end-to-end. And the third aspect is the actual platform being an SDK and allowing others to build services on top of our kind of core platform, whether it's a telehealth experience or even kind of a training service that can run on top of our core kind of platform, in the sense that they provide their own service on top of what we built.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great vision. And basically what you're providing is an infrastructure that allows for any form of service that requires any kind of communication to do that, right?
Yes, and yeah, we're known for our meeting service, but actually we have built multiple communication modalities to support our customers. And we've released a phone service about 2 years ago. We're augmenting it with the messaging capabilities as well. Of course, we have the conference room that we can talk more about, what will happen when people come back to the office, but we've built a conference room experience that also integrates very well into the end-to-end Zoom communication suite.
Yeah, yeah. I can give one example of a company that already benefits from Zoom, from tapping into the Zoom services, right? As I'm sure many people are well aware, one of the very popular use cases of Zoom is sales calls, right? And a company that both Oded and I know very, very well, called Gong, actually tapped into that, right? And what it is basically is an automatic transcription services for sales calls that's coupled with artificial intelligence to allow extraction of really important cues and signals from a sales call, giving indication to sales manager about kind of the health of the transaction, kind of the performance of the salesperson, and basically kind of providing analytics into a process that so far used to be shrouded in mystery, right? through Gong, through the APIs that Gong provides, this is all of a sudden available for other services to look into and provide analytics on top of, right? I assume that you're seeing many.
Yeah. Gong is a great example for the use of Zoom apps. And the idea is, Gong is providing the service already today, but with Zoom apps, they'll be able to actually tap into the meeting experience itself and provide that end-to-end where, you prepare for the meeting, you create maybe an agenda and you prepare your materials as a salesperson. And then while you're in the meeting, you can actually in real time see how you're doing or kind of understand what is the actual response of the other person that you're meeting with or providing a demo. And then using our APIs and using the recording, take that experience that you just had and analyze it. Gong is doing a great job around that, being able to really provide you a feedback on how you did and actually provide the team leader that overall kind of understanding of how all the team members did. So that's kind of a great example on how Zoom apps will evolve.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great. Oded, I'm sure that there are questions from the audience. Maybe we can make a little bit of time for that also.
Well, thank you both. I have to say, on a personal note, I've experienced both a family wedding and a family funeral during this time period. And it's the life cycle. And it's been fascinating to learn from both of you, both your own personal journeys and how the Technion had impact on you personally and actually around the world in terms of what we're doing. So I'm now happy to turn the program over to Vicki Uder, who's the ATS Senior Director of Development based here in San Francisco, to moderate the Q&A. And please continue to submit your questions using that Q&A function on the webinar screen, and we'll get to as many as we can. And Vicki, nice to see you.
Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you, Itzik and Oded. Fascinating. I have to personally say that without Zoom, I don't think I would have survived the pandemic, especially having a father who lives in Hong Kong. The world is a much closer place now because of it, and I am personally grateful and professionally grateful because I think a lot of businesses and certainly nonprofits would have had a much harder time getting through the last 15 months. We do have some questions from the audience, so I'm going to start with a question from Elizabeth. She says, it's so wonderful what Zoom does for education. One of the biggest problems children have these days is connectivity so that they can use the myriad of products available to them, which would significantly enhance their education and consequently their opportunities for success later in life. Is Zoom doing any activity towards supporting or even driving access to Wi-Fi to the underserved?
That's a great question. I think the first thing that we've done is try to support any kind of network. And, even if you have a kind of a low bandwidth connection to the internet, Zoom can operate, and we keep improving that and making sure that you have, even if you have a limited access, you'll be able to join a Zoom session. We are not right now kind of involved in providing access to users. I know there are other companies like Google and in that level that build that, but it is something that we may decide to do in the future. Right now, we don't have any kind of ambitions around that.
Okay, thank you. Oded, also a question from two different viewers who are asking what differentiates the Zoom from other players, and I'm going to tag on to that with the question from Barry that says, now that Zoom has become so successful, there are other similar products available now from Microsoft and Google. What differentiates Zoom to keep it ahead of the competition? So similar. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're trying not to kind of look head to head, how our competition is doing, rather than look into our users and what their needs are. And really that was separated us early on, is that grit and that drive to look into our customers' problems and try to solve their problems. And that's what we're focused on. And we feel that will kind of give us an edge moving forward even further. And that's our approach.
Thank you. And a question from Rani. What role do institutes such as Technion play in the modern world where information and self-education resources are ubiquitous? And will the next CPO of Zoom have a degree from the Technion?
Yeah. Well, answer to questions. First, I think there's so much information out there, so being able to kind of moderate it and make sure that people have access to the right information and being guided is really the big thing around institutes like the Technion, right? And in general, higher education, it's less, in my opinion, it will be less about the actual physical space where you have to go to a certain library, you have to go to an auditorium to listen to a professor. It will be more about what that professor does in terms of organizing the content and being able to really make an order of all that amount of information out there. So that's how I feel things will evolve. Itzik, I don't know if you have kind of an opinion around that.
No, I definitely agree with you that we should not think about the Technion as a collection of a particular set of buildings on Mount Carmel, right? It's more of the atmosphere of the organization, the staff that the organization embraces and gives them the academic freedom to pursue very advanced research and to allow them to inherit that same methodology to the students. The world today is way less about, or education today is way less about absorbing a set of facts, the way it used to be 100 years ago. Like you learn something and then you apply that knowledge for the rest of your career. The knowledge that we acquire today is mostly irrelevant in 3, 4, 5 years. What is relevant is to learn how to think, to learn how to learn. And I think that the Technion has a very rich history of doing just that, and this is why it's I think it's the university that provides some of the best engineers in the world exactly the people that know how to tinker with things, learn new things, invent new things, because they don't take anything for granted and they're able to apply very strong methodologies in order to invent things and be the best in what they do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then around the second question, we try to think ourselves as a startup, even after our huge growth. And so I feel that someone who's coming out of the Technion, based off how we studied, to think outside of the box has good chances to be the next CPO.
Great, thank you, Oded. A question from Clarice, first a comment. Great talk, thank you, she says. And then, can I be blunt and ask for your comments on the security threats Zoom had been facing amid the pandemic?
Yes, definitely. This is something that we had to deal with. We've built the product originally for mostly organizations that had IT staff that could configure the solution to their own security needs. And as we became more applicable to everyone, more individuals were using us, and you can't expect those individuals to run through their settings and do it on their own. And so we had to change some of our settings to really provide the right defaults for individuals using our product. And we also very quickly added more functions and features that allow that security to work. We have the security icon for the host of the meeting. We also added full end-to-end encryption. So we keep evolving, you keep adding more capabilities around that. That's something that really is core of Zoom moving forward.
Thank you. A question from Sam. I noticed that in multi-person sessions, when folks use a variety of video cameras on their computing devices, the quality of the video varies greatly. The proper setup of the video source, mostly called webcams, is left to the
Yes.
novice user to navigate. Is there a tool or a process to deal with this problem?
Yes, that's a great question. Actually, it also relates to what Itzik and I studied in the Technion, which is signal processing. And right now, we actually are building a lot of intelligence into the product itself to take the video feed and enhance it. And if you go to the settings today, you will be able to see there's a lot of gouges where you can control it. And I agree, it's more of a professional person that can use it. But the idea moving forward, and that's what we're building, is do it using artificial intelligence and machine learning and build those things automatically. So for example, I can give you the virtual background that I'm using right now. Initially, we started with you have to have a green screen behind you, and only then the virtual background would work. And over time, we use those new technologies to really separate between the person and the background, whether they have a green screen or not, automatically. And we'll keep doing that and using those technologies to improve the video quality without, having that knowledge in terms of playing with the settings.
Thank you. I have a question now from Howard. Israel and Technion are now among the great leaders in many technologies. Many, if most of the leading tech companies now must have Israeli offices for critical product development and research. What do you think are the keys towards Israel having more companies like Mobileye, companies that stay Israel-based as they mature?
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
yeah,
I could.
Being in
Go ahead.
Israel and close to all those startups, Itzik, you should take that.
Yeah. No, what we're seeing, I think you brought up Mobileye, which was which is a great example. On the one hand, it's a very disruptive company that's really kind of played in a very big league, but ended up kind of being acquired by Intel, and they're doing great there. We're actually even more excited by companies that want to stay independent and go and change the world, just like Zoom does. We have now a cohort of companies that are very much Israeli-based and want to do the same. I can give an example, a company called Wix. I think many of you know it. They drive most of the websites of small and medium businesses in the world. As you can imagine, this is a huge market and growing very rapidly. Wix is very much an Israeli company that's not going anywhere. They're just building just outside my window here. They're building a huge campus, and they're planning of being around for a long time and transforming the entire ecosystem. The one limiting factor that many of these companies have is the shortage of skilled people, right? This is where a university like the Technion plays a major role, but we also need more Jews, and we need more people that live here, and that's something that's kind of limiting some of these companies. Frankly, the fact that the world is becoming a smaller place with tools like Zoom allows for more efficient remote work. And many of the companies here now open up kind of new facilities in Eastern Europe, or sometimes in the States and in other places in the world, and employ more skilled engineers in these places. And that contributes to the fundamental strength of the local industry. That's a trend that is we were looking forward to seeing it, and it's definitely happening now. And we're very, very proud with how the Israeli high-tech economy is evolving. In certain places, we used to be called, like, there was this very famous slogan called Startup Nation, and now we're almost like changing that, and we're starting to brand ourselves as the Scale-Up Nation, meaning startups are great, but we're really happy with these companies that are scaling up and want to transform the world and stay independent.
Thank you. I have a question from Ari. What can you share with us about multilingual translation in real time for Zoom?
Yeah, I can share. So first of all, we do have a system that allows to do it in a kind of manual way. What we identify as a problem in the past was that you need to have kind of simultaneous transcription for people that want to listen to an event in multiple languages. And the problem was this was a separate system that was very expensive to use, that really wasn't working well, especially when you had a Zoom meeting and that type of system providing those different languages from different people. And so we actually built integration that allows you to seamlessly integrate it into the product itself, where you can have people talking in different languages and people can choose the different languages as they sit in the event and kind of listen to the content itself. Now, moving forward, as technologies evolved, we are looking into building the transcription service that we have today in different languages. And that's something we're kind of looking for the right technology, be able to provide that. And that will be something that will not require the settings that simultaneous interpretation requires, but it will be more of an automatic way. The same way we've evolved virtual background, the idea is to take those new technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning and build those technologies automatically into the product.
Thank you. I have a comment, more than a question, from George Elbaum. He said he's been speaking for 10 years to high school audiences about his Holocaust childhood and receiving afterwards thousands of letters from students. He's pleasantly surprised that the quality of the students' understanding and empathy is good when his talks are now via Zoom, as it was pre-COVID, always face-to-face with the students. Their understanding and empathy is determined by their teacher, and the Zoom connection does not detract from it. I want to add that I have seen him speak in person, and it is a remarkable talk. And moving it to Zoom, I'm sure, was that he thought it would probably be challenging, but it is amazing how small, again, the world has been made by Zoom. I don't know if you have any comments on that. So
I think it's great to hear the ability to really expose the history and share it to the world so that no one forgets in a more scalable way. Back to Itzik's, the idea to scale. And I think Zoom can help scale not just from a technology standpoint, but also from knowledge, from tradition, history, and keep people's memory intact on that front.
thank you. I have a question from David. How can the Technion and ATS, that's American Technion Society, strengthen Israel's image as not only a powerhouse of technology and advances for humankind, also a common breadth, and I think there's a typo in here, people that want a brighter future for the Middle East?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I'll give my answer. Itzik, feel free to add. I think, as Itzik mentioned, really having the skilled people to build technology through the Technion and such organizations is one aspect of it. And so kind of contributing to the Technion and donating to the Technion helps. And hopefully, you can grow to, more people studying now that they don't need to be physically in the Technion, they can study remotely. But I think overall, I know that Technion expanded to branches in kind of New York and in China, and maybe expanding to more branches across the world to spread that the word and have that idea of prosperity and technology helping people live peaceful lives. And that's the idea that hopefully the Technion will promote. That's my take.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you on that. And maybe just to add, what I think everybody knows and feels very instinctively is that people coming together helps see themselves, see beyond the facade, right? See the real story that's beyond like the 60 seconds spot on the news, right? And especially in a situation that is as nuanced, as complex, as sometimes painful as the one in the Middle East, being able to step outside of the caricature, right, and get to know the people on the other side, I think is key, essentially, to eventual prosperity. And the Technion is a great platform to do that. I wish we'd do more. I wish we'd have more student exchange programs. I wish we can create more opportunities for students to get together and get to know the people on the other side. I think these are the best ambassadors of Israel and of peace that we can imagine for.
Thank you. I have a question from Michael. The automatic transcription feature is certainly very useful, but still a long way from being as good as a human. With advances in machine learning, how long do you think it will be until we get to that level? Also, how hard is it for a relatively small company like Zoom to compete in areas with bigger firms like Google and Microsoft?
Yeah, I guess my Israeli accent doesn't work well with the transcription, so I apologize for that. I think that, yeah, the idea is for us to learn more accents. Actually, that's the biggest challenge that we have with the transcription today. And because different people have different accents and you want to be able to translate them. If you had like someone in the US or someone in the UK speaking, that it will be more accurate for sure. But you know, using machine learning, what we do is we actually, of course with permission, take existing sessions and we analyze it and learn from it and apply it into an algorithm that uses machine learning to improve. So the more people use it, the better it gets.
Thank you. I have a question for you from one of our audience. They want to know if you do all your meetings by Zoom or if you have meetings in person.
Well, actually, you know, I did start kind of meeting some of my team members in person, and I can tell you that we've grown so fast that I have a lot of team members that I haven't met in person at all. And so now that, you know, a lot of people are vaccinated and it's actually allowed to meet and congregate, and so we're using that to get to know each other physically, not just over Zoom.
Great, thank you. Let me see if, can I ask you to just maybe tell us a little bit more about how your Technion experience led you to go into the work you're doing now?
Well, actually, I can share that both my father and my sister, and I think 4 of my cousins went to the Technion, so I had no choice. But I feel just for me, what I really enjoy is the connection between the right brain and the left brain, and how you can really bring technology in a way that is more human through that. And so the story is, you know, my sister studied architecture in the Technion, and we actually studied at the same time. And I would go and help her build the models for her projects while I was studying electrical engineering. So these are 2 opposites, but it actually shows that, you know, technology needs to be applied in a way that it closest to human behavior, and tying the left brain with the core algorithms to the right brain, where you know think about people usage and art and aesthetics. That combination is the biggest thing that I learned from the Technion, you know, studying with my sister at the same time.
Thank you, Oded. Can I ask you what one of our one of our attendees would like to know, what do you see as the greatest challenge for Zoom over the next 5 years?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is actually how to really adapt to the new way that people will work and live, right? How to kind of take that barrier that used to be, that is no longer there. People now are really accustomed to using video communications and take it to the next level. One aspect of it is extending to more use cases. We spoke about celebrations and other congregations, but also make it more engaging, where I can go and shake Itzik's hand after this session and we would feel that. Or having that more immersive experience is one aspect of it, but also support it in multiple use cases, in healthcare, in education. How do we expand? How do we support that? And I think the direction we're taking to become a platform is we know we cannot do it on our own. We want to build the partnerships and the ecosystem to allow others to help us, drive that mission.
Thank you. So I think I'd like to ask you both if you had just any closing sentiments, and then I'll turn our program back over to Rosalind. Oded, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I just want to thank the organization ATS for doing this and for supporting the Technion. We understand the importance of the Technion, so hope more people will be able to help. And as Itzik mentioned, this is such a great need for Israel and across the world. Technology can bring people together. So anything we do for the Technion helps bring people together.
Thank you. And I have one final question from Barbara. Zoom is being used so greatly in healthcare in our nation. Do you think that this can be extended to raise healthcare standards in third world nations?
Well, that's a big topic, but what I've heard actually from some of our hospitals, that some of the hospitals that use us, is that even today, what is happening is that instead of sending people to meet experts in their own hospitals, where people, at least in the US, people had to travel to different states to get a second opinion. And now that's not the case anymore. Hospital like Stanford Hospital here in the Bay Area is actually bringing experts from different places in the world to provide that second opinion. And that takes off the burden from the families to travel across the world. And so if it applies to the US, where people don't have to travel across states, it can apply to anyone in any place across the world. As long as they have a connection, they can get that support and get that second opinion and expert advice on healthcare matters.
Thank you. Thank you both. Rosalind, we'll bring you back on. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank Vicki, you, and certainly the phenomenal conversation we've just had with Oded and Itzik. I mean, just fascinating, informative, inspiring. You both have the passion and the intelligence, and frankly, that entrepreneurial spirit to positively transform the way we all live and work and play, which I think is an important part for all of us here. And as we've all clearly seen, the Technion has had an impact on our lives in ways which we weren't even aware of. The Technion's, I think, DNA, and through these graduates and many of you who are on this call, can be found across the continents and across technologies, and bringing us where we are today, where Zoom is really a defining platform for this moment. And it is a word so ubiquitous that it's become part of our everyday vocabulary. I want to thank everyone for joining us, Technion, for Vicki, Itzik, Oded, and everyone be safe And we'll see you all again, of course, on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.